as we are live, and that's always fun. And there's usually a few. There we go. And now we are live. We'll see people pop in. Hello, hello. It's so good to see you again. I'm so delighted to have you join us again. Julia, DJ, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we have flipped the script a little bit for the timing. I now publish all Project Kin events at either 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 6 p.m. BST in Britain right now, or 4 p.m. Pacific time, midnight for you, but a civilized hour, 9 a.m. I believe at the moment in, for example, Melbourne. So I have gotten good at calendars just to talk to you. So we just switched from our what I'd like to call Atlantic time to Pacific time, and you will be the first of this series at that time. And I'm delighted. Back last year for All About That Place, last year I called this the Pacific Edition, convincing my good friends all in the UK that it was worthwhile doing for the rest of the planet. And they fell for it. So here we are. Hi there. Truly, it was the Society of Genealogists that introduced you to me and and I got to invite you to join us to talk about Bayleys Plantation. So I wonder if you can start by telling me just briefly, or sure for the audience, briefly what that story was all about and why it was so important to you personally.
Well, it was about Buster, who is the first national hero of Barbados. He was the first out of I think there's 11 now, and I didn't know anything about him. Obviously, when I first moved to Barbados, I was 8 years old. We moved to this plantation house, and it's just over the years of finding out when he became probably a national hero that what the significance of the house was, and in the island and as a whole. So when I started doing genealogy, I didn't obviously look at it as such. I just always had it in the back of my mind to do some more investigation on the house and things. But when the All About That Place came about, I thought, oh, well, maybe now's the time to dig a bit deeper. I've been over the years looking at different people's research and things, but I thought, okay, I'll dig a little deeper and see, what I can produce.
Now you go by the handle Diggy's Diaspora, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's me.
Does that come from your interest in genealogy?
Yeah, well, yeah, and as they always say, with the diasporas of the West Indians moving to England, and with the Windrush, and obviously the enslaved moving to the Caribbean, and we're all over the world, and there's many diasporas in the world, and I just think, where do I connect in? I'm just saying Diggy's diasporas because it's not just one thing. It's not just my enslaved ancestors. I've got Indian ancestors. I've got all different ancestors, so I'm hoping that my research for the Caribbean would be for everybody. You're not just,
Yeah.
Black
Yeah.
people necessarily.
Right. And it really brings in the perspective of history as it affects all of us. In fact, as you talk about, to me, the age of 8 is just such a compelling, magical moment. It's when you first start to raise your head and look around at the outside world, look beyond your parents.
Yeah,
And there you were moving was this from Britain to
yeah,
Barbados? So,
yeah.
so tell me what your family connection was with this plantation house.
There's none at all. We're not connected at all. My family's not even Barbadian as such. My parents are both Guyanese, which is in South America. But, all the islands do have some connections. My mom has, Barbadian ancestors I'm still trying to locate. And, but ideally, we moved to Barbados because my parents' business, they were bringing their business to Barbados because Guyana was a bit behind it technologically, to say, at that time, where Barbados was a bit more advanced. So they wanted to move back to the Caribbean, and so they picked Barbados. That's
Good
how, and
food
then found that
I
house.
see.
Yeah, it was just all
Yeah.
by chance. Yeah.
Oh, the connection of an actual physical building that you move into. And frankly, it seems to me that with the honesty and independence of not having the direct ties to that place, but the
Mhm.
direct ties of physically being in that place
Yeah.
must be really compelling, especially to put that into the mind of an 8, 9. How long were you there?
Well, my parents still live there, and I lived there often. So I left when I was 16, and then moved back again. So I've been back and forth. But
Oh, it
yeah,
is your
I was.
house. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
they're
wasn't
still there.
like
They're
a
still
place you
there. Yeah,
rented. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
It's
Now your interest in genealogy is more than a little side hustle. Tell me a little bit about that.
Genealogy started with the family history. Since I was young. My great grandmother, she lived with my family. She always used to tell me stories, and that was what piqued my interest. And what I was saying with my mom's family, my great grandmother's father was the one who was from Barbados, and so we've been looking for him and his family for years, and so that's what started me on that road of searching to see is the story true, where
Yeah.
can we find this person. And so it's just grown, and over the years of just building the family tree. And I decided, I think around when we had the pandemic times, I thought I'd just like to do a course. And I didn't even know there was a master's course at that time. And I said, okay. I was searching and I saw it and I thought, oh, I'm like, why not? Let me give it a try. And I did it, So I think that, it helped being that we were in a pandemic, unfortunately, because there was nowhere to go. And, so I had a lot of time to do that studying and things. So that's how I ended up where I am. But
So
yeah,
you started pursuing this as a master's program just from 2020?
the course I started in 2021. So just after, 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And now you have the master's and you're
Yeah.
pursuing a PhD?
I would like to. I haven't actually got on the course yet, but I wouldn't mind doing that. Yeah, just to see how far I can take it.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, especially with this kind of expertise that you've built in the Caribbean as a whole. Something that I understand that you're going to be doing at Roots Tech. Tell me about that.
Uh, so I will be doing a recorded presentation on the archives of the West Indies, the British West Indian Islands. So it's a short one. It's 20 minutes. So I'm gonna get in there, get as much information as I can to because people are always asking questions of how can they research their families? It's very difficult. There's
Yeah.
limited information online. Family Search does have some of the records online, but it's they don't know how to access the archives and what is in the archives. So I thought, okay, give it a shot and see what I can pull out and compile into a nice little presentation to get everybody started, or those who are started already, to for them to find out more what the archives have, because a lot of the archives aren't in a great state at the moment in the Caribbean, and they don't necessarily know, they can't get the information to people. So I'm going to try and see,
If
you know.
if you'll pardon my saying so, as I
Mhm.
think I mentioned, I've had a whole career in technology and I am right here in Silicon Valley. We have an expression. It says you skate to where the puck is going. Now, being a Californian, I think I get what the basic principle is of this hockey thing, but I think that means you don't go where you are right now. Looking to the future, you go where
Right.
things are important.
Yeah.
And many of us talk about how in genealogy, this transformational period that we're seeing now really largely fueled by AI,
Yeah.
everything from transcribing documentation to the kinds of queries and whatnot that can vastly accelerate your research, that this is a transformative period in an area of genealogy that has not been studied so deeply. All these doggone lineage societies, meh,
Yeah.
that goes way back to the 19th century where it was hip, right? But coming down to something like this, where the records are just becoming available, it sounds to
Mhm.
me like it's a tremendous time to be able to really make a difference,
Yeah.
and set things on a healthy path, making sure that things are archived.
Yeah. Looked after,
served,
preserved, yeah.
looked after. Now, tell me a little bit about this Bayley's plantation. We're here to talk about place. You shared a really interesting story last year, which, of course, everybody can go back and view that recording now from the link that we shared. Tell me a little bit about what was so compelling about that, and Busa. Well, I think for our audience, we want to give them a little bit of a heads up about Busa's rebellion, and
Okay.
then what that is connected to this building.
Right. So, in that time period, it was, you know, they were going through a lot in England with trying to talk about how to, if they were going to free the slaves and, how they were going to do it, and obviously how they were going to compensate the owners. And then, so the whole process, so obviously the slave trade stopped, but they were still obviously still had the enslaved there, and how they were going to do this process. So a lot was being talked about in the newspapers, and it happened that one of the some of the slaves could read, but obviously were not supposed to. And one of them, I think, Nanny Grigg, she was able to read the papers and said that something was going on. They're supposed to have released us, they're supposed to have freed us, but so they were like, we're going to have to take our freedom, we're going to have to fight for it because they're not giving it to us. That process obviously hadn't come to pass as yet, but they decided they were going to have a rebellion. And so it started on the plantation that Bussa was the head of this rebellion, along with other key people in other plantations in the surrounding area. So they started to formulate how they were going to go about it, spread the word, and on Easter, they were supposed to have the rebellion. But it started a couple of days early, but still, it still managed to start the uprising, and yeah.
The year, what year was it?
Oh, the year was 1816. 1816. In fact, next year is 210-year anniversary of the Bussa Rebellion. Yeah, it's 1816 at Easter time. So so they started this rebellion within the island. It went from parish to parish, and they moved, and they moved around the island. They went and fought with the militia of the island, and basically they will have to say, I think only one white person died, was killed in the whole of it. But obviously many enslaved people died. They were executed afterwards. They were, killed on the fields, and there is no documentation of how many people actually died, which is very strange because they documented everything. And the fact of 1817 was the start of the slave registers, and you can obviously, so that's when they started the triennial slave registers of documenting who the enslaved were, so that when they go to the compensation, they'll be able to see that no one's selling slaves out, or buying slaves. So they as I said, they didn't have any documentation on who actually died. So which I think is a lot of documents get destroyed when they don't want,
Yeah,
for whatever
yeah,
reason. Yeah.
yeah. It's hard to believe there never were, but
Yeah.
it's easier to understand that they were destroyed. Now, the
Right.
connection of that rebellion and Busa himself back to the Bayley's plantation, where your
Yeah.
family happened to live.
Yeah.
How does, and then the famous sculpture? How did what's that all about?
So they well, he was the head ranger at the plantation, which is, they say, quite a position of power. He was over the other enslaved, so he had a bit of freedom, as they say.
Like a foreman? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would, yeah, think so. They can move about. They will go between. They can go to other plantations if they're taking things. They were given a bit more freedom, so that's how they think the word spread, and they could actually go. They had parties. They had this party just before at a neighboring plantation, and they said that was the final night where they sat and discussed what the process was going to be, and how they were going to go about it. So, as I said, in his position, he had a position of power, and he had, which would be, uh, the enslavers probably think, quite a bit of freedom, but he's not free. He's not a free person. So it's taking, as I said, taking matters into your own hand of how, what's the right. And if, you know, it's quite hard to debate it because, people in Barbados or and say, was he actually the leader? I don't really think, as I said before, that you can actually state one person can't do it all
No.
themselves.
Yeah.
But, he was given that title, as like
Right.
the General
Right.
Buster. Yeah.
Right. Now, in an environment where the ability to read and write is spotty and
Yeah.
there's no electronic transmission of information, everything is word of mouth, and there's a conspiratorial nature to all of this. So nobody's even could write things down. I would imagine that someone in a position of leadership anyway would be the one would be assigned that responsibility, the acknowledged
Yeah.
as a leader to all of this, which at the end of the day cost him his life, certainly,
Yeah.
through all of this. Um, do you have a sense from your research as to his motivations? What would, what prepared him for this, do you think?
Mm. That's a great question. That's a great question. No, I don't. It will be quite hard to
Oh, yeah.
discern, what exactly would spur you on. But especially as I said, as he's in that position of power and probably given some freedoms that a lot of others didn't, maybe given more food. I don't, so you can think, well, in that position, wouldn't you just be happy to stay that way? But if we all have in ourselves, some kind of impetus to be, you want more or you want something. Oh, you said,
Right.
do I want to do a
Fairness.
PhD? Yes, I do. So in yourself, you can think he could be there thinking, well, I have this position, but what do I want for my children? I want
Yeah.
better and I want more. And I can only think that that is what kind of the striving, and it's especially if you're hearing word that we're supposed to have this freedom, it's then you're at that point of, well, let's, there's a motivation. Let's go for
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
In your genealogical research, do you see your own connections through people who were participated in the rebellion?
Not for myself.
You said your own family, you said, was
In
from
the
there.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
from Guyana, right? Yeah, which they had their own rebellions as well. But yeah, no, I haven't in connection with Barbados. No, but it's that's also something I'm trying to look at, not for myself, but within the plantation, is the fact of with these slave registers, I'm trying to see if I can move it forward and find their descendants and start to trace them, through the slave registers on those who were left behind. I call it, those after the rebellion. It's 1817. Literally, there's 200 people still working there. They are the ones who were left behind because remember, they're not buying any new ones. So they actually saw it. They were there, even if they were not part of it. And this is the same case on other plantations around. Those were the ones who were left behind, and even as such, the ones who died have probably left behind children. So their descendants have, grown on there after slavery, ended. They still worked those plantations. They still lived in those surrounding areas. If I can link them to back.
Yeah.
So
Now,
that's what
forgive
I've
my,
done.
we could say it's for the benefit of people from outside the area, but for my own education, help me understand when the institution of slavery was ended, specifically in Barbados.
So it ended 1834 was
So it
the
was
end.
another 15 years, 16
Yeah.
years, right?
Yeah. So the
15 years.
yeah, and then after it, they did a period of indentureship. So
Mm,
it's ended, but it didn't end.
right.
Yeah,
Sharecropping kind of thing. Is that
yeah.
right?
So they lessened it was supposed to, I think, go on for 8 years, but they lessened it. And after that time, then you were totally free, but still obviously probably working on the same plantations because
Right.
where else could you go? Some
Right.
people obviously moved further afield, would have moved maybe into town because you have the opportunity once you're totally free. But
Right.
it was problematic because in indentureship, the parents was working on the plantations, but then they didn't want their children to work on the plantations anymore. But if you didn't work on the plantation, you weren't fed. So that was they were trying to, everything was cut off from you. Whereas before, when you were enslaved, everybody was fed. So that was the dilemma that parents had to go through because they didn't want their children to be indentured. So,
Hmm.
but if you didn't have them, how were you feeding them and who was
Right.
clothing them and looking
Right.
after them?
You know,
It
we
was very
see that
difficult.
in, by the way, we're thinking about future programs that will focus on migration
Hmm.
because around the world, families have taken the risks to move, go out and risk their families and open oceans because they
Yeah,
can't feed them.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
compelling.
Very, yeah,
Um,
there's.
you have become an expert on research resources for families in the Caribbean area. Do you have specific tips, pointers, directions? You're obviously giving a whole talk about that, but at a very high level, are there fundamental misunderstandings or things that you wish everybody knew right away?
Oh, everybody knew that's a hard one. As I said, with documents that, birth, marriage, and things, Family Search is the best place to find most of those at the moment. Not everything is able to be accessed at home. Sometimes you have to go into a center to be able to access some of their records. But they do have quite a few islands, and so it's like, I'm going to say the popular islands. Some of the, it's not everywhere. So this is what the
Larger.
problem is. Yeah. There is a lot of, I think also the British Library has with the endangered papers project. I think I can't, that's not the right
Mhm.
name, but it's something like that. They've got a project where they go to certain islands and I don't know how they've applied, but they would do newspapers and documentation from, I think, like Montserrat, because of the volcano.
Hurricanes? Oh,
Yeah, the
volcanoes.
volcano. Yeah, I think they did a lot of their papers. So there are things like that online, but it is very difficult because to go further than that, to go past that, you have to go to the island, and not everybody can
Yeah.
access the information, and not everything is digitized, and so that's where the difficulty comes. Yeah.
That's my point about skate where
Mm.
the puck is going because, we've seen this. We know which direction it's going in.
Yeah,
More and more documents will become available,
yeah,
and being part of getting those documents, helping those documents become available and helping people get access to them, people to see the potential
yeah,
for these kinds of stories. Which reminds me, it must be very difficult if you start out with the assumption that, yeah, nothing's available, can't be done, can't be done. How
yeah.
do you get started? How do you get people to believe that they can get started?
Um, I think it's how do you get them started? Well, once if they have an interest, it's just get looking, and it can't hurt to look, because when I started, there was no online. I was going to the Family Search
Mhm,
Mormon
mhm,
place. I had to
mhm.
go there and look on the microfiche and things like that to see if there was any information. And so you look, if there's nothing there, you just keep looking. I just, sometimes I put things down and I go back and then there's something there. So you just never know. You just have to keep on. And as I said, it's not instant, but it's just that persistence. Yeah.
Mhm.
You just have to keep on trying and digging away at it. Unfortunately.
Are there
Yeah.
Are there techniques around, names? I mean, because of the ways in which names were
Mm,
passed or withheld or taken away from
no.
the enslaved, often you have names like, Smith and Jones and whatever
Yeah.
that are just passed on that have
Yeah.
many people, that are, hiding in plain sight, essentially. Is
Yeah.
there a strategy for getting around that?
Um, well, when they were enslaved, they had very unusual names, some people. And some people changed. They baptized and they changed those names. With the slave registers, you see them as the enslaved names. Um,
Ah, yeah.
right. So if sometimes it's and going from that into then, as I said, going through baptism papers, or if there's any indication that the name was changed, those kind of things. Even on baptism papers, it might say their former name and then their enslaved name and then their new name. So it is difficult marrying the two sometimes. But as I said, it's that persistence and looking through the different documentation that is available. Yeah. Even when I did a lot of research into when the payments for the enslaved, and when you look at the first type of paper, there's nothing there. It's just, numbers. It's for the you did that role, how much money you're going to make for that person. But then they have the contested papers, and it's when, the two parties are complaining. And then that's when all the documentation starts to come in, because they're trying to prove how they own this person. And then they start.
Forensics.
Right. So even if you're not finding your enslaved person, you might also find, in their family, how things, you're finding wills and things in these documents, because they're sending everything to prove this person belongs to me, how I attained the person. And you can also see, okay, that person lived on plantation A and they've moved to plantation B. They've gone from one family member to another family member. So you can see how they moved. If you knew that your family to belong to one place, you might find then, oh no, they originally came from another place. It's just using everything that's out there to piece together the story. It's not easy, but it's possible.
Yeah. We had a talk earlier about the researching records for really the British East in India and the British records around that. In this case, you've got records that are tied in with property, and property with a legal system that acknowledges property has value and you can't take your neighbor's property. So that creates a document trail, or should, if they're available. But still, the heartbreaking reality of the truth has got to be exhausting. So to brighten things up, how do you keep yourself sane doing the work that you do?
The thing is, because of the determination to get the answer, it's sad to say, but it kind of overshadows there is sadness. It is a very dark period, but I'm so determined to find out what happened and where have my people gone, or where did they come from, that that determination keeps me fixated and focused. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I love that. That is such a beautiful way to get through. There are scholars focused in all kinds of horrific parts, ugly, painful parts of history, of time, of modern, crime and other kinds of dreadful things, and keeping it focused in terms of the goodness that you are doing. You remember, if I am really lost the day that my name is no longer said, right? To be able to say and remember those names, you are on a quest of hope. You are on a quest of memory. You are on a quest of unearthing these stories, which are so valuable, not only to the memory of those who are lost, but for the lessons that those provide to future generations, even beyond you. That's really wonderful. Do any of you in the audience have thoughts and questions for us? Please feel free to chime in. It's a delight to see so many of you here today. I know it's a lot of pressure. That's okay. That's okay. We're cool around here. As my audience here knows, a lot of the discussion happens in the chat afterwards, in the comments to the video post. This will be sent out shortly as a video. You'll get a copy. I'll get a copy. I'll be publishing my copy with notes from all the cross references here. It'll also be posted up to YouTube for the All About That Place series that we're so delighted to have a part of. And I look forward to you, Diane Grant, being an active part of this community going forward. So my genealogy peeps, join me in welcoming Diane to the community, and let's make it easy for her to get started. And hey, see, I'm an activist.
It's like I like to say there was somebody the last year when we spoke, there was a woman that was asking some questions about Antigua, I think it is. And if she's out there still, let her if she can message me or whoever, I can't remember her person, but I might be going there soon. So I might be able to do some research for her. So
And
yeah.
again, this Diane is all mastered up. She's got a fancy master's degree and ready to go as a scholar. So who knows what else we're going to hear about Antigua? I can assure you that there are many families out there searching for their loved ones, their ancestors in all of these islands. And truly, for the whole genealogy community, we're thrilled to have you participating here, and truly inspired by the work that you're doing for
Thank you very
your
much.
ancestors and all of us out there. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So with that, I'll keep it short. I promise to keep it short, and we'll follow up and keep the conversation going. Thank you again.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.